What's going on, everybody?
Just another day in paradise.
Got a bin behind me I just emptied. It was, I forget what he called it. If you've been doing this for a little while, you've probably come across it at least once or twice, but essentially commercial roofs are not always done with shingles and or like metal or anything like that. Sometimes they're just styrofoam panels with a membrane above them to just keep everything sealed in. I am on my way to the job site again for the third load. They booked one dumpster that turned into two dumpsters that should have turned into three dumpsters, but they tried to get away with only doing two dumpsters. But that's not gonna happen. So I'll try to include a picture of the bin. It was kind of funny rolling up to it because, I mean, it's super light, super easy, and thankfully it was all intertwined with plastic anyway. So it was like plastic wrapped around it. But I mean, you're talking 5 foot around almost, probably something along those lines, bundles of styrofoam. So the second load I pulled up to pick up, the guy said it was done. It's sticking 5 feet above the bin basically, and there's two of them. So I called up the roofer. I said, hey, I don't know if you're here, but this ain't gonna work. We ended up coming to the conclusion that what I'd end up doing was tossing out the bundles and then come back for what is essentially a third load. But I'm gonna treat the third load more like a junk removal job than a dumpster rental, and I'm gonna end up putting it in to the bin that I just emptied. What was the second load, I'm just gonna drive back there, throw it in now for 150 bucks. Now, my overload fee alone could be 150 bucks. Just to be clear, I range it between 75 and 150, depending on how crazy it is, which the size of this was pretty crazy. Thankfully, it was at the top of the dumpster, easy to get out, and incredibly light. They maybe weigh 100, 150 pounds a piece, possibly even less than that, possibly a little more than that, but at the end of the day, not too different. So going back right now, gonna pick it up, throw it in the bin. Now, back to my 150 comment. So the reason I say the overload fee alone could have been 150 bucks. I technically did not have to do what I did. I could have made the same, if not more money, and I could have not even picked up the styrofoam. I could have just tossed it out, made my 75 to 150 bucks, and been on the way. The roofer that booked this job is not actually even in my area, so technically speaking, outside of them being a little upset and maybe if they come back they're not going to call me again, I wouldn't lose much of anything. It's not a local contractor, it's not someone I've worked with before in the past, just a guy who quite frankly tried to get one over on me to some degree. Not too excessive, and then you also can't blame the owners for stuff that the workers do essentially. So I try to always look at it in the how can I help both parties the most, right? I run a business. I want them to continue using my business. I want to get good reviews. I want everyone to be happy at the end of the day. But I also can't get abused. I can't drive down the road with stuff flying out. I can't not take a third load and, you know, just allow people to overload my dumpster and just turn a blind eye to it. I will not be held hostage by reviews and or angry customers. Now, if I mess up and you're angry, you have every reason to torch me. But if you mess up and you're angry, you're SOL in my opinion. I worked in the auto industry for a long time, and I found, in my opinion, that my management and bosses tended to give the most free shit to the people that would scream and cry the loudest. And I hated it. I absolutely hated it. Because the nicest people on the planet are paying the most money, while the people that you absolutely hate doing business with are getting the least expensive service. It just does not compute in my mind, and I wanted to not follow with that philosophy in my own business. So ultimately, I try to take every situation as an individual situation. I try my best to make sure that I am never abused and that I am paid for and taken care of. I do charge a premium for my service. I'm definitely not the most expensive, but I'm not at all the least expensive either. And I also believe that I am the best, if not one of the best, when it comes to communication and making sure stuff gets taken care of and all that. So I am gonna charge him $150. I'm about 15 or 20 minutes from my house / shop to the job site, so it's not like it's a far drive or anything like that. And ultimately, I am gonna do a little bit of the work to put stuff into the dumpster. So there will be people, when I post this video, that have been doing this for a long time, that will say I am absolutely wrong and I'm encouraging people to abuse me in the future by doing stuff like this. And they may be right. It's just kind of the nature of, I'll say that's more along the lines of the nature of being a parent than anything, but being a business owner and a parent are very similar things. I actually kind of got into it a little, not an argument, but a little disagreement with my mother, in which she had made a comment that if I allow my son to do what I'm allowing my son to do, that he's going to turn into a little brat. And the reality is, I just looked her square in the face and I said, Mom, if he turns into a brat, that's my problem, isn't it? Like, you don't get to decide how I raise my kid that does or doesn't turn him into a brat, because reality is we never know. We just do our best and try to always make the most sense out of every situation. But reality is, it doesn't matter how old you are, how experienced you are, how much you know. Stuff is sometimes unpredictable, and you kind of got to go with your gut, and you've got to make the decision that you believe is the best for that particular situation, to have the best outcome overall. Now, I do think that I'm raising my kid great, and I don't think he's going to turn into a brat. But my mom was of the generation where it's, you do things X, Y, and Z, and if you deviate from that, everything's going to go all haywire. I don't necessarily think of it that way, but to get back into the business side of things, if this person does ever use me in the future, which may or may not happen, there is a chance that they're going to say, all right, I can overload his dumpster, and he's going to just charge me a lesser amount, and he's going to take care of all the crap. So I don't need to worry about that stuff. That is a very real possibility. On the other hand, if this goes the way that I think it will, and this customer does choose to use me in the future, they may get to that second dumpster and go, you know what? We just need to get a third dumpster. That's just the reality of the situation. He was very reasonable last time. Maybe he'll be very reasonable this time, and we'll get, a discounted rate on the third one, something along those lines. Because reality is, I'd have rather just brought him another bin. I told him a third bin would have been $250. Essentially, these loads are hundreds of pounds. I'm paying my dump fee minimum, which works out to be just under $40 on essentially what would be almost $1,000 job. It's going to end up being probably a $850, maybe $900 job once it's all said and done, with a dump fee cost of probably $120. My fuel, it's a little bit, don't get me wrong. Driving a diesel with a roll-off trailer is not cheap, but give or take, let's say, I'd have to look it up on a map. It's hard to know what distance versus time is, but if I had to guess, it's probably 5 gallons of gas or diesel that I'll burn on this entire process from all jobs. So, give or take $150 of cost. Maybe if we go on the real crazy end, $200 of cost, and 4 to 5 hours worth of work to do everything. I think that's a more than reasonable amount of profit on this particular situation, right? So I was okay with doing a slightly discounted rate. The customer was very happy with the proposal that I had of just throwing the foam out and coming back to get it. So, he's ecstatic, fine with the charge, not going to be an angry customer. I don't have to stress it out for the next 3 days, wondering if they're going to dispute a charge or fight me on a review, something along those lines. So everyone walks away pretty happy, which I think ultimately is a major win in this industry. Make as much money as you can, but realize at the end of the day that it is not all dollars and cents up front, because you can always get a charge back, you can always get a bad review, you can always have someone complain about something that didn't have to be complained about, and just the stress alone of thinking about someone being upset with you is not worth it. It's really not. Like, let's say best case scenario, I made an extra $100, but this guy was pissed off, and I had to just, for the next, for the rest of the weekend, let's say, I had to stress whether or not he was gonna call me up and complain, write a bad review, try to fight a charge on his credit card, all that. It's not worth $100, man. It's really not. Go find the next fish, because you've already boned this one out. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of all I got to say about it. But yeah, I mean, more or less, make happy people and you'll be a happier person, and don't let people abuse you, and you'll make enough money to at least survive. You don't always make $1 million on every dumpster. You're gonna have some that you're gonna write off as a loss ultimately, just because there's situations that you just can't predict or didn't know were going to happen, or any number of things. So yeah, it at the end of the day, it is great. Charge whatever you want to charge. Use your fees to your advantage. Make sure that no one is ever getting one over on you. But be reasonable at the same time. Realize that we're all humans and we're all trying to make money. If I set out to do this dumpster job and I thought I was going to make $1,000, let's say, and it ended up being $600-700, I'd be, a little bit disappointed if I had to spend a little extra money to do one thing or another. If I scratched something or broke something. And that's the same thing with the roofer. He doesn't want to pay for 3 bins. He's already got to pay his crew to be here. He's already got to pay for the first bin, for the second bin, for, all that stuff. But we're all just human. We're all just trying to make it. So it's my little piece of the day. Good luck out there, everybody. If you are flirting with the idea of getting into the dumpster business, no, it is not as easy as everyone makes it out to be on YouTube, I think. But it is a nice industry if you're smart and know a thing or two. It's not easy. It's definitely not easy. But essentially, at the end of the day, I just problem solve and drive a truck around. So it could be a whole lot worse. I could be the roofer. God, that job would be just miserable. I can't even imagine climbing up on roofs. We're in Florida, so some days it's 100 degrees. You got 90% humidity, and you're an extra 20-30 feet up in the air, pulling off shingles, throwing them into a dumpster at a weird angle, and God bless them, because that is a rough job, man. And they don't even have the worst of it. There's other jobs that are way worse than them. So just be happy, be blessed. Everybody be grateful for what you got, and always seek to find a little bit more, but stay within your means at the same time. Until the next one, everybody. Good luck out there.